Hi bestie, I'm Lacy Schoen, CEO of Real Women, Real Success. And today what I have for you is a message to micromanagers. Now, you may not be a micromanager, but when I started my business 3 years ago, I started a YouTube channel. And about a year into that, I had a request from one of the women I was coaching to do a video on how to handle a micromanager. She worked in a retail shop and she was being micromanaged. And so I gave her some tips that really worked out well. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to make a video about it to help people who are struggling with this, because although there's many categories of micromanagers, some that are can be rehabilitated and some that cannot, it's valuable to try. Their methods are valuable to try. And if you haven't seen that video, it's my most popular one on my channel. I think it's like 18,000 views now. So obviously this is a huge issue. And I wanted to make this video as a message to micromanagers. I want to first say though, if you're a manager, that this is micromanaging. Something that I think is fairly easy to fall into if you haven't had the proper training about what your role is and what your staff's role is. I also know, having worked my way up to CEO from the ranks, that once you start being in the middle management role, sometimes you are literally the middle of the sandwich, being squeezed by the demands of staff versus your own boss. And sometimes for survival, you're catering more maybe to your boss than to your staff. There's all those dynamics. You know, when I look at my YouTube channel, I've printed out all the comments, right? There's been so many comments on this video. Micromanagers out there, you're causing a lot of pain, but not only that, a lot of wasted time and heartache that's not serving your company well, not serving your team well. And I want to give you some tips on how to manage your staff. They're very simple in a way that you can avoid micromanaging. But just, I mean, some of the emotion that comes out from people who are obviously looking on YouTube for solutions to the micromanagement dilemma have huge emotion in their responses. One person here says, screw micromanagers. I experienced chronic pain. Someone who is supposed to be on equal status attempted to micromanage me. She's exhibiting competitive behavior. I should have reported her, but she was afraid it would cause herself more damage. She wasn't sure how it would be received. Borderline bullying. I will say micromanagement isn't bullying. Someone might be a micromanager and a bully, but they're not the same thing. So I think that's really important to understand. I think sometimes micromanagement can be an overused term. There's a man who wrote, I get a lot of emails from men. I focus on women, but men primarily have been my mentors. I love men. And so if any of them email me or need or want some coaching, I gladly help, because I got to where I went in my career because of men. So even though I focus on women, I love that men are commenting. And this is a man that was micromanaged by a woman, and he actually reached out to me and asked for some advice, and I was able to help him. There's a guy, Joe Farmer, who's creeping all over my channel that really has some anger about micromanagement. His personal view, it seems to me, is that there's nothing that can be done. And of course, my video on how to handle a micromanager is not for people who think there's nothing can be done. It's something to try to ease that situation. Here's a kind of a scary one. Some people are only alive because it's illegal to kill them. Here's one thing. If you are a micromanaged employee and you're commenting on videos on YouTube, I want you to know that your employer can find this stuff. So if you're having any problems at work, I love that you comment, but be careful about what you say, because this is something that can be used in a court of law against you. It can be used for a potential employer to say, oh my gosh, apparently this person had issues too. So be careful, right? I know there's emotion about this, but try to make your comments very professional, and don't jeopardize yourself in the process of commenting on something that strikes a nerve on YouTube. That's my best advice to you. And then there's a few people, you know, thank you for the suggestions. I think my boss is insecure. I'm going to try some of the things that you suggest. Here's Joe Farmer again, that pretty much is saying that micromanagers are insecure. Oh, and he thinks they're all women. I'd like to challenge you, Joe, on that. Women, although 50% of the population, are only 5% of Fortune 500 company leadership, only 14% of government leadership. Even though you say government in your comment, there aren't enough women in leadership positions to be the primary micromanagers. So if you do have stats on that, a legitimate study, please email me at lacy@lacyshane.com. I'd love to see that study that proves that women are more likely to be micromanagers than men, because I think that's a crock. I don't believe it unless you show me a study, and then I'll look into it and see what I can do to help if that's the case. Another derogatory comment from Joe. There's someone else who thinks it's absurd to suggest that you should have compassion for a micromanager. Okay, here's where I want to say compassion is never out of style. Leadership is never out of style. There are a myriad of leadership programs. There are a myriad of companies out there that offer how to train leadership. There's companies that claim they train their leadership. Here's the thing. Leadership started becoming really popular. How to, give your staff a voice, how to train them correctly, how to hold them accountable, and then help them succeed. All that stuff started coming really, really into vogue in the 80s. And from the 80s to now, you don't see any higher percentage of great leaders in corporate or government than there were before. So the reason I talk about this is because what are you going to do? If you have a micromanager or a crappy leader above you, are you going to say, my life is over, I quit, I can't be successful? No, women are needed at the highest levels of leadership. Good women, okay? Women who have leadership skills. You can't just give up. The only answer is to lead from within, to lead up, to lead out, to try things that influence your situation. Does it mean it's going to change every situation? No. But the way we change relationships is we change ourselves, and then notice the response. So I'm never going to say just sit back and take it, that there's nothing you can do. That's false. I've seen stuff like this work, stuff like this from my other video. But my point, again, is to talk to the micromanagers and say, look at the pain you're causing. Look at how much time and attention people are paying to this topic when they could be working on a project for you, right? So I'm going to get to what you need to do to be a better manager in just a minute. Micromanagers will ruin you the first chance they get. Well, that's a sweeping generalization if I ever heard one, but I can see how that person would come to that conclusion, and it probably seems like that to them. They probably haven't worked for every micromanager. I want to give a shout out to Chris Reflections, who actually had something productive to say other than thank you. He goes through how to train and then discipline an employee, how to outline your expectations and then train and discipline an employee, and that's part of what I'm going to go through. For you, if you're a manager that tends to give a little bit too much attention or a lot too much attention to how your employees are doing things, I'm going to go through what you need to do and what your role is and how to accomplish that. But this is probably one of the most productive comments I've had on my channel. It's not overly emotional and it's very productive. So I want to thank Chris Reflections. He says he's a former micromanager, so that's cool. See, they can recover. Yeah, unfortunately, you're just asking them for more micromanagement, work overtime to appease them. That's not the solution I want. And there was someone who said, if I go and try to empathize or be compassionate with my micromanager, I'm just going to get slapped with more work. Well, that's not what I meant. I meant, what emotionally are they lacking? What do they need from you? What stresses are they under? It's never a bad idea to understand what your leadership stresses are, not even if they're not a micromanager. If you're an employee that doesn't understand what keeps your boss up at night, you're not doing all you can do to be successful. It is your choice. Maybe you don't want to be bothered. Maybe you don't care. But how can you expect someone else to care for you if you don't care for them? And you may say, it's their job to care for me. Well, I would submit to you that a relationship is a two-way street. And it isn't just the paycheck that is part of the two-way street to your business relationship. Look at yourself as, whatever your name is, incorporated, okay? Have enough self-respect to make yourself the most respectable, professional, leadership-oriented professional that you can be. And let me give you a quick example about this. Let's say you work at Starbucks and someone comes up to the counter, right? And they order a half-calf double decaf with 2 pumps of vanilla and some low-fat whipped cream with a twist. It's pretty specific, right? And if they tell you, and I'd like the coffee in that this many degrees, which I've seen, okay? Specific degrees. I want it super hot, extra hot, right? I think that's how they say it. Would the person behind the counter say, customer, you're micromanaging me? No, they would not. No, they would not. It would be their job behind the counter to say, okay, got it. We'll do that as quickly as we can, okay? So why is it different if someone's, okay, this is a person who's paying for a cup of coffee. I give you money, you give me something. Okay, if you're collecting a paycheck, it's the same thing. Your customer is giving you a paycheck, and it's your obligation to say, what do you need from me, customer? Now, not to the point where it drives you to the brink of insanity, not where it overworks you, not where you're putting in all this overtime, but I want you to change your mindset. It has nothing to do with how bad a micromanager is and everything to do with how you think about your job. The people paying you are your customer. So if they have high standards, if they do have specific SOPs, standard operating procedures that have greatly detailed ways of doing things, that's just a high standard in SOP. That's not micromanagement. So that's why I say really be careful in using that term, because it's not always accurate, okay? It is accurate a lot, but it's not always accurate. And again, I'm going back to the managers watching this video. Look at the pain and confusion you're causing. Look at the leadership you could be offering these people, okay? I'm going to get to you in a minute. I just want to get through some of these comments so you can see what kind of pain this causes. This stuff may not always work every time. Bosses just don't give a damn. That's what this person thinks. How sad. We spend about, what, 70-80% of our lives at work? Who wants to spend 70 or 80% of their lives feeling downtrodden, feeling beaten down? I mean, if you can have any influence on this, don't you want to? And if you work in an environment that doesn't support being a good manager, don't you want to find one that does? It's success is being a true leader, okay? There are people that scratch and claw, and they have to scratch and claw to maintain their positions their entire career. You know how stressful that is? I've seen people die over it. I mean, literally, get sick and die over the way that they've scratched and clawed to the top. So it's not worth your health. It's not worth the stress. Learn good leadership and then go find a company that will embrace it, okay? Personally, I had some female micromanagers and male micromanagers. Okay, here's someone who understands that both do it. Female bosses are always micromanagers. Power goes to their head. I don't believe that. 40-year career, 4 managers, all women, all have micromanagement issues. Ugh. Here's someone who says, what a crock. So they don't, oh, that's the Joe Farmer again, creeping on my channel. He doesn't like what I have to say. I'm not going to give that any more attention. And here's another comment of his and another comment of his. This is very useful, Lacy. Every now and then I get one of those. You have to ask yourself, out of what? Like 20 pages here, 5 comments, 100 comments maybe? 4 or 5 people think this is useful? Okay, but it works. Okay, with the people that I've coached my own career, it works. It works. It's never out of style to try to build a productive relationship, okay? That is just good relationship people skills. So these people that are responding more favorably, they're probably the ones that are going to find their way out of this situation, either through getting a better result from the micromanager or for showing the kind of leadership that allows them to get promoted. What are you going to say when you go into an interview and they say, have you ever handled a difficult person? What do you say? No, I quit instead? No, I really tried to work it out with this person. Here's the things that I did. And show them your leadership. Show your service leadership. Show them you understand that whoever hires you is your customer and that you have enough self-respect to raise yourself to the point where you are going to deliver for them. And if you're still cashing the paycheck, keep delivering or leave. That's your option. And if enough people leave a micromanaging boss, they're going to find it very hard. They're going to find it very hard to continue, right? To continue to have success. So I've probably done enough. I've got all these many more pages, managers, of heartfelt comments about the impact that micromanagers are having on their life. So I have some tips for you written down here that are really pretty simple. And I do believe that they are the absolute key to, or I should say, they are the absolute key to the basics of being a good manager. And the first one is really have a great idea of the skills and abilities and the type of personality you want in the position you're hiring for before you put the ad out, because you want to hire slow and fire fast, okay? One of the biggest reasons that employees become a problem is because someone hired them when they weren't a good cultural fit or their skills didn't match the expectations, right? I've been guilty of that myself. I've hired people that were not a good match for my organization. Take the time to hire the right people. You need the right people in your organization. And one thing I used to do, because I worked in the very, very stressful and fast-paced and hurried and, just, oh my gosh, environment of politics. I know you know what that must have been like. And I told people before I hired them, there are times where I am literally running in and out of this office. And I may have to download a request to you fairly quickly. I'm not upset. I'm not yelling. I'm just saying, I need this from you by 3 o'clock. Is there any reason why you can't get it to me? Great. See you later. Thanks. Okay. And that is not meant to be difficult or disrespectful or anything like that. It just means that I am under the gun from the people above me. And I told that story when I hired people, and I said, if you can't work in that situation, this may not be the job for you, because I can't always stop and explain myself. I will as soon as I get a breather. Every week I have a staff meeting. I like to let everybody know what's going on, what they can expect, what the challenges are, what the opportunities are. But every now and then it's going to be a tricky situation. And I wanted people on my team that can handle that. And so I brought that up in the interview. And if they winced or whatever, then I would think, probably not a good cultural fit. If I asked them, hey, have you ever had to deal with a micromanager or someone who gave short, concise direction that maybe seemed a little blunt? And how did you deal with that? And if they gave me something really constructive as a response of how they handled it, then I thought, okay, great. If they've got the skills, they can do the job and they can fit in here. And I always found that. And I never regretted telling people that up front, that sometimes I'm not my best or sometimes I'm rushed. Are you going to be okay with that? And that's something you can do as a manager. Let people know about the environment they're going into, and then ask them for examples about how they've handled a similar situation in the past. And don't hire them if they can't hang. Hire slow, wait till you get that right person. Keep interviewing, interview again, advertise again, get only the right fit for your organization. And if they're not a fit after you've done the things I'm going to tell you, then let them go quickly. And this is why you have to train quickly. Once you've hired these people, you have to give them an orientation and you have to train them. If you don't do those two things, you're asking for a mess. You're asking for more stress yourself, like you need that as a manager. So you have to give them good training and you have to give them a good orientation. You also have to give them regular feedback. And I think this is probably one of the most tricky parts for managers, because I think that especially if they're insecure, not confident about how to give constructive feedback in a way that doesn't seem like you're insulting or downgrading the person, which can be tricky and difficult, right? It can be tricky and difficult to give good constructive feedback in a way that is embraced, right? It's just not something we enjoy doing, but you got to figure out how to do it well, and you got to do it on a regular basis. So my advice is you set up a weekly meeting with each one of your staff, or every 2 weeks, and you download the positive and you download what you want to see changed, okay? And you let them know. It's so important. You let them know. Now, I really, really think it's important that once you give them that feedback, you back off and let them go do their thing. Here's a very simple way to remember what your job is. Your role is to tell your staff what to do and the timeline it needs to be done in. Now, with the caveat that if you have SOPs or quality standards, they need to know that. If you're going to be checking on those, they need to know that. Then they know that's not a micromanaging issue. That's a quality standard issue, or that's a policy issue. And if they know that, then they might not feel so micromanaged. But barring those two things, you must meet with them regularly and give them this feedback and allow them the opportunity to do their job the way they're going to do it. You are the what, not the how. Don't tell them how to do it. Don't get in their stuff. Don't get all up in their grill and start telling them how to do their job. Let them do it. If they've been trained, they know the SOPs and the quality standards, let them do it their way. As long as they meet the result you want, and you have to tell them the result that they need to get you, and the timeline, that's all you care about. Back off from there, okay? Do your upfront work and then back off from there, because if you don't, You're going to be a micromanager, and you are going to suffer the result as much as your staff. And if you're micromanaging because you don't know what to do, look, here's how people typically get promoted, which shows you that leadership hasn't made huge tracks in all of our organizations. People are usually promoted because they're high performers. They got something done, or maybe they're politically astute and they know how to really be known, liked, and trusted by leadership. But because someone is known, liked, and trusted, and because they knock it out of the park in their own work, does not necessarily make them good leaders. So a lot of times people get promoted into a managerial role who don't have any leadership skill. And it's not necessarily that that's a problem, but organizations aren't training their entry-level leaders to really be good leaders. And that's a challenge. So I don't see that changing much, which is why a lot of people experience micromanagers. Now, here's the other thing, micromanagers. I had the experience over and over again of hiring entry-level employees that did a great job and then wanted to become managers, okay? How do you think I knew I needed to teach them leadership skills? Because the minute they got into a managerial role, they started doing everything they hated about their prior manager micromanaging them. Because why? Their perspective had changed. They had new job duties. They had a new boss. Their world kind of got a little bit bigger, and they really didn't know how to empathize with their prior position, even though they'd just been there. So that's how I knew I needed to employ leadership training, which I did ad nauseum, over and over again. Every week we would do leadership training in my office with my managers. So that's one of the reasons that micromanaging exists, and that's all I'm going to say about that. The last thing is that no matter what you do as a manager, document everything. Document the good stuff too, because when you have to do a review of someone's performance, or you are meeting with them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to give them feedback, you're going to need notes, especially if you have more than one employee. You're going to need notes. Even if you only have one employee, you need notes. You know why? Because when you give them the review, you want to have as much of the positive information as you do the things to improve. But if you have to move into a performance plan or a disciplinary proceedings, you're going to need those notes with dates and times of meetings, emails, stuff like that. Documenting both your interactions with your boss and your staff is never a bad idea. Yes, it does take time, but why don't you forget the micromanaging, do your training and your orientation up front, your SOPs and your quality standards, do that up front. And the time that you would normally spend micromanaging, spend that documenting the good stuff and the bad stuff. And then when you have those regular meetings, make sure you bring up the good stuff. Celebrate people. It may seem small to you, but it's huge to them. And it's like putting money in a bank, okay? There's a very famous book called His Needs, Her Needs about successful marriage. And the author of that book talks about relationships being deposits into, he calls it the love bank, when it's a relationship of a man and woman or whatever, a couple, not necessarily a man and woman, but a couple. But relationships exist in more than just that scenario. And they exist in a work relationship. And the thing is, things that make relationships work are the same no matter what kind of relationship they are. Both parties are giving to each other. You know, you've heard the term give take. I don't think that's what a healthy relationship is. A healthy relationship is give. You may say as a manager, well, we're giving them a paycheck. Yes, that's true. Just like in Starbucks, they give you their money and you give them the coffee back. But don't they also ask their people at the counter to give the customers a smile, to make them feel welcome, right? That's your job as a manager. Give your employees a smile. Give them the best of your personality. Make them feel welcome. Make them feel like that you are on their side, okay? That is so integral to being a productive manager and getting what you need and want out of people. So this has been a long video. It's an important video. I know that because I got have gotten so many responses over the last couple of years to my How to Handle a Micromanager video, that, and after seeing the comment about how managers can be successful at managing their employees, I wanted to fill that out a little bit for the managers out there. And if you think you're leaning a little bit towards the micromanagement side, or you're actually a full-blown micromanager, it's not in your best interest. I just want to encourage you to employ the steps I've just given you. Have some heart and compassion for your employees. please feel free to reach out to me. I love my job coaching women. But if you're a man, you can reach out to me too at Lacy@LacyShane.com, and I'm glad to answer any questions for you or help you out, or if you want to explore coaching. I also have an online women's group called Women Thriving in Business. There's a link down below if you want more information on that, or you can email me and ask for more information. If you email me, I'll give you a discount to join. So I hope that was helpful this week. Go out there and kill it, and always remember, I'm your biggest fan.